Reading with your kids.
Hey, so great to see you. Come on in. Hi, my name is Jedley, and this is the Reading with Your Kids podcast, coming to you from the beautiful Reading with Your Kids studios in the lovely neighborhood of Reedville in the southwest corner of Boston, Massachusetts. We are so happy that you're part of our beautiful Reading with Your Kids family. We have a wonderful guest for you today. She is the author of He Is Risen. Rocks tell the story of Easter. She is also a rock artist. Not a rock and roll artist, a rock artist. You're going to find out all about that. Our guest today is Patti Rokus.
This episode of the Reading with Your Kids podcast is brought to you by Jedley's totally interactive Magic Circus. Imagine a show where magic, illusions, comedy, music, and inspiration all come together as one. Imagine a show that has helped over 1 million young people and adults to change the way they approach life. A show that has shown people that being kind and respectful is fun. That show is Jedley's totally interactive Magic Circus, a transformative show that inspires young people to make healthy choices, be kind, and respectful. To find out more, please visit www.jedley.com. or call 617-833-7063 today.
Get ready to rock and roll. We have an awesome guest on the show for you today. Not a rock and roll musician, but a rock artist. And we'll explain what that's all about. Our guest today is the author, I think that's the correct term, the author of a couple of books, He Is Risen, Rocks that tell the story of Easter, and also A Savior is Born, Rocks that tell the story of Christmas. Please welcome to the show, Patti Rokus. Patti, how are you?
Jed, I'm so excited to be here. I'm doing great, and I love your podcast, and this has everything to do with what you're all about.
I am so excited, and Patti and I had just had such a wonderful conversation before we started the interview that I even forgot to ask her how to pronounce her last name. Did I do okay?
It's perfect. I wish it was Rokus, Patti Rokus, because it's rocks I play with, but it is Rokus. So you did it right.
Okay. Patti Rokus. So the story, He Is Risen, obviously the story of Easter, and you have a very strong Christian faith, and you're expressing that through your books. But your books are different, and they're especially different than most of the books that we talk about that have beautiful illustrations and drawings. You have beautiful artwork, but they're not typical illustrations. Can you tell us a little bit about the art that you feature in your books?
Yeah, you're right. It's not typical. I went out hiking alone on a 2-week camping trip, and I found these beautiful rocks in a dry riverbed, took them home, and lo and behold, I realized as I started pushing them around that those shapes could be pulled together to tell stories. So I could make pictures out of these rocks if you just put them together. And that started this whole new art form called rock art. And these 2 books emerged of the rocks telling the stories of Jesus.
That really is beautiful. And if you just have to Google her name and or go to Amazon and click through the book, because the art is really beautiful. And it's very different than art that you would see in a cathedral. Because it's simple. They're shapes. But they're shapes that come together that absolutely clearly tell this beautiful story. And it is, we both love this story, this Christian story.
Yeah, if you go to my website, Rocks Tell Stories, so rockstellstories.com, you will have a bunch of free resources, and you can see all of this art. You don't even have to buy the books to see the art. And I've actually animated each page of the books and let those, I call it rockmation instead of animation. I've let those rocks tell those stories just by animating them. So you've got the book, and then you also have the pictures. And the point is that anybody can do this. Little 3-year-olds are doing this. Adults are doing this. And so once you see some of these pictures, then you'll just go outside your own backyard rocks and start doing it yourself.
I love that. And I do want to start getting into that. Patti was asking me what the kind of purpose and the mission of the Reading with Your Kids podcast is all about. And And I was sharing with her a story about a conversation my daughter and I, who's now 23, had, and I was telling Patti that I absolutely believe that conversation that we just had as adults started when she was 1 and 2 and 3 years old, and we were reading together on the couch, and I was asking her about the pictures that we were looking at and what she thought about the story, and empowering her to let me know that I valued her opinion. And so this, that's the inspiration for the podcast. And one of the things I love about your books is that it's a different way of looking at this story, this faith story, and I think that it by sharing this book and talking about the book and asking what we're seeing in these pictures, it's kind of a way for parents and families to say it's kind of okay to look at this story in different ways, because this story, one of the beauties, one of the things that I think is so beautiful about our faith that we share is that it meets people where they are for whatever needs that they have. And you might be getting something out of the story of Christmas or the story of Easter that's important for you at your moment in life, but I might be getting a completely different story because of where I'm at in my life, and we're both right.
Oh, you're exactly right. And I have an example just came to my mind of what that is. Can I throw that out there?
Sure, absolutely.
And before I throw the example, I thought maybe I had to paint a visual picture since the whole audience is listening, but we're talking about art. So just quickly to paint a picture so they have an idea, and then I'll give this example of what you're talking about. The very first realization that these rocks could tell stories was when I've dumped out this bucket of random rocks that I picked up. And I pick up this one rock from that bucket, and it's really gnarled rock. And you'll see this if you pick up the book. This one's from the Christmas book, Savior is Born. This gnarled rock, it's the size of the palm of my hand, I'm looking at it, and it looks like a person kneeling without a head. Okay, you can just see kind of the body kneeling. And then it kind of has an outline like a halo around it. And all in one rock. And so I picked up a little round rock and put it on top, and suddenly I could see somebody kneeling. And I thought, that must be Mary, mother of Jesus, kneeling. And so I thought, is there an angel in this bucket of rocks? And there was a long rock, so I stuck it up there above Mary. And I found a triangle for a wing and a circle for a head. And suddenly, with 6 rocks, I have a picture from that story. Well, those pictures, then I started building out all the pictures, a donkey, camels, kings, a pregnant Mary and Joseph, all of those just with simple rocks that anybody could find. Well, to your point of what you were just saying, that by doing something with our families, a parent and a child, or a caregiver and someone, especially books, as you're sharing that experience together, reading it together, talking about the meaning together, you create this deeper bond and trust that lasts, just like it has lasted with your daughter, and you could have these rich conversations with her now as a young adult. Well, one of my pictures is of the Garden of Gethsemane, which isn't focused on as much as like the crucifixion or the resurrection in Christianity is my experience. But I did a depiction of the Garden of Gethsemane with all the piles of rocks on top of the back of Jesus, representing all of the sorrows and pain and suffering and sins of the world on his back. And there's a scripture just in one place where it says an angel comforted him during this experience. Well, so I put an angel there with him on this picture. So I'm showing this picture to some children, and to demonstrate what you're saying, that by sharing these experiences, it generates conversation that you might never have ever had. So I'm showing this, and one of the children points out the angel and says, I wonder who the angel is. And we don't know. The scriptures don't tell us. And so I said, well, what do you think? What does that mean to you? And by that simple open-ended question, I don't know, as an adult, asking, well, the child didn't know who the angel was, of course, but she said, well, if an angel can comfort Jesus, and Jesus is better than everybody, then maybe I can be an angel to somebody else and I can comfort them even if I'm not as big as them or as good as them. And I thought, whoa, what a lesson for all of us. And to your point that these stories, these core Christian stories can teach everybody different lessons, can teach us something that we need to hear in the moment, and can bring us together with our children and our families. It's so true.
Yeah. And one of the things that I think is so important, whether you're a Christian or Muslim or Jewish or Buddhist or Hindu, we have these values that are important to us. And I think as parents, it's important for us to instill those values in our kids. And books are a great way to do that. And sharing stories like this, it's a great way to do that. And it's not, just like I always talk about, parents are the most important, the first and most important teachers for their kids, and especially when it comes to reading and math and things like that. It's absolutely true when it comes to faith and values. And if you have some values that are important to you, then it's important for you to find some books that you can share with your kids and start sharing these values. And like you, do it in a way that is open-minded. I think that's the way that makes sense to me. It's not lecturing. It's not like, this is how you will believe, and you can't deter from any. It's just like, hey, this has brought some value to my life, and I found some comfort in this story and in these lessons and these values, and I'm sharing them with you. And what do you think about it? And give me some back. One of the great things, there were times in my son's life when he would come home and things weren't working well for him, and I remember having one very open and honest conversation with him when he said, I don't believe. And we talked about it, and it was through that conversation that we kind of found out what was going on in the other aspects of his life, and so that opened up some doors. So yeah, it's just so important to have these conversations with our kids. And before we go any further, I want to talk. You describe this amazing kind of moment where you found some rocks and you spilled them out on the table, and suddenly you were seeing things in these rocks. I think that would be such an amazing experience for families, not to build another story about create art about a Bible story, but just to create art, to go out. What a ongoing great activity that could be for a family, to go out and gather the rocks and to have that experience of being on the beach or in the woods, and then coming home and spilling the rocks out on a table and just discovering what the rocks, what kind of art you can find in those rocks. How can encourage us to and let us know how we can start that process?
Oh, yes, I love that because, most of us were picking up pebbles and rocks as kids, and almost every mother has heard the clanking in a washing machine of some rock that's fallen out of the coat pocket, and it's just banging in the washing machine. So I've been amazed to have so many adults come up to me and say, oh, I collect rocks. We all seem to have an affinity for the things in nature. And when you go on a beach, don't you come home with some seashells? It's just like we want to be connected to these natural things that are out there. So we're getting them anyway. And so now here is something to do that is just so full of joy. You asked, how do we get started maybe creating some things with these nature elements? Mm-hmm. I love rocks, and I'm not an artist by any stretch of the imagination. I'm a singer-songwriter in the closet, but I can't draw a stick figure. I can't paint. I want to, but that's just not the gift I've been given. But I can take shapes that exist in nature. I can't draw a shape, but I can take one that exists and pair it with another one and say, just take a long pebble, a long stone, and put a little circle above it, and you have a person. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's that easy. Mm-hmm. And as soon as you do that, you just take two pebbles and put them together and go, oh my gosh, that has a likeness of a dog or a likeness of a little baby or a girl or something. Then it's just kind of this treasure hunt to then see what else is in this pile that I have or that I could go get. So here's the tip for those of you that want to do this and just go try it. Like, you go try it right now. You have gravel in your yard. You can do this. Mm-hmm. So you look for 3 shapes. Look for long rocks, and those are harder to find. And so whenever I'm walking down the street and there's a long shape, even if it's only an inch long or maybe 3 inches long, I pick it up and pocket it. So pick up long rocks because they make great bodies, great feet, arms, legs. Yeah, and when you're making people, you want long things. And then you don't want perfect things. Another life lesson, if you're doing this with your kids and you're looking for rocks, if you find a perfectly square rectangular rock, it's so boring. Mm-hmm. If you find a perfect circle, well, there's no head that's a perfect circle. So the more you can find it a little curved or a little squampus or scratched up, all the better. And then you can apply that lesson that we're all different and that's what makes us special, you know, all those analogies. So look for long rocks and look for circle-ish rocks because those make great heads. They also make nice hands and feet. And then look for triangles. So you're just looking for long, circle, and triangles. Triangles make everything. And once you make a person, if you just put a little triangle on their back, it looks like a wing. And who doesn't like angels? And so it's so fun to make angels, especially as they're flying through the air, because you only need the profile. And so you just have one little wing sticking on the side. So it's so easy. And when you look at a Savior is Born book or the videos on my website, I have lots of angels. And when I work with children, that's the first thing we do. And they make them like that. Like they're no brainer. As soon as the parents come in the room and you say, make an angel. Oh, I can't do that. I don't know how to do that. You know, but the kids have no resistance and they make beautiful art.
That's so cool. I do want to take exception with you for one thing. You said that you're not an artist and you may not be able to draw shapes. You may not have a degree from a fancy university. But I absolutely disagree with you. You are absolutely an artist, and you're an artist because you've taken something and you've created art. And I think it's important because our kids are artists too. And I think if you're a singer, if you're a writer, you are an artist, you are creating something. You are taking something inside of you and you're communicating that through art, through song, through writing, through poems, through visual art. And I'm making this point to you, not that I need to, because I want parents to understand that their kids are arts and to help their kids understand that they are in fact artists. They don't need a degree. They don't need to have their art in a gallery. If they're creating something that's meaningful to them, they're an artist. If they're creating something that's meaningful to you, that's even better. And then if the world likes it on top of that, well, that's just a little bit of icing on the cake. But the main thing is we use our gifts, we use our talents to express what's inside us and share it with the world.
And I don't think most people know how important that is. If we take this a little deeper, we can discover that what's innate in every human is to create. And when we create, we feel more whole. But our technology and our lifestyle has taken the creativity away from us. Our entertainment and our devices are showing us really cool things instead of us creating really cool things. And so there's a lot less creativity going on, and that creates a hole. And we need to create. You see somebody at home that makes a beautiful bouquet out of the flowers she or he is creating, makes the home look lovely or clean it up. They're creating a lovely space. There's something very healing about creating. And so when we offer especially our children, and by the way, doing this in assisted living homes has been fantastic too. It's like available to everyone because you don't have to have any skills. So when we offer, a pile of rocks to somebody, or we go out into nature and find these, it's an opportunity to create, as you're saying, and shows that we are all artists, and it gives us permission to create. I saw a TED talk just recently, and this was from 2015, and the speaker said that according to the World Health Organization, the number one issue in the world that they will be facing by 2020, and that for us, that's in a few months, is depression and anxiety in children and in adults. That's like the number one big giant issue. And it's my experience that when we can take our kids into nature, on the beach, in the mountains, along a stream, at a park, and we allow them to just get absorbed into nature, which playing with rocks, treasure hunting for the right shapes, that takes our focus off of all of those concerns and worries and issues and pressures, allows us to relax, and then allows that calming effect to happen. So, no medication and available to everybody. Free art resources everywhere in rocks and sticks and pine cones. Get outside and let that calming influence take place. And now we're talking about creativity. We're talking about connection in relationships. And we're talking about easing the pain and suffering of the world.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And the other thing you're talking about, too, is helping kids see what others aren't able to see. Mm. You found that rock and you looked at that rock that probably a billion people over time have looked at and have not seen anything. But you looked at that rock and you saw a person in that rock, an incomplete person, a person that needed something, and you were able to provide that something to help
treasure it.
And treasure it. Yeah. I think that giving the kids this exercise of going out and looking to see what others can't see would be a good way for them to start looking at people who might be broken, classmates who might be hurting, and helping them see the potential friend that is sitting next to them. And to see the person that we're afraid of, that person that speaks a different language, that has a different faith, that wears different clothes, to see the potential of friendship between us that maybe the other kids in the class can't see. And I think that's a muscle that needs to be exercised, that whole being able to see what isn't obvious to the world. And I think that's an amazing gift to help our kids develop.
Oh, I love that you said that. I couldn't agree more. And it's helping children understand symbolism, which is kind of what you're saying. It's a deep word for it, but helping them see what others don't see in something is something they will use for the rest of their lives. And instead of life being 1 inch deep and just taking it for what's coming at us, being able to go 100 yards below the surface and find meaning and depth in their relationships and their experiences. Could we give them a more important muscle strengthening? What you're saying, I think if we could. My mother did that for me. She took me into nature and she helped me to see what others wouldn't see. And I've taken that throughout my life, and it's brought great meaning and depth to my life.
Mm-hmm. Fantastic. Wow. I'm hoping that most of the people that have been listening to this have shut off the podcast and have gone out into nature and have already started collecting rocks with their kids. But if you haven't, that's really cool, because I'm glad that you're still with us, because I want Patti to remind us of her website and remind us of the different books so that we can go out and check out the website a little bit more, maybe get some more inspiration, because it's probably late at night and the kids are asleep. You don't want to wake them up and go out at 11 o'clock at night to find rocks. So remind us of the website and remind us where we can find both of your books.
Yeah, thanks. The website is Rocks Tell Stories. Rocks plural. So rockstellstories.com. And on there, you don't have to buy a thing. You can just watch all my videos and see how I put the rocks together and what shapes I look for. And I even have some instructional videos on there, and a few free downloads where I give you field guides on what rocks to look for to make these things. So download those, try this out. The 2 books, one for Christmas is called A Savior is Born. Rocks Tell the Story of Christmas. And you can find that on my website if you want signed copies, or at Barnes & Noble if you want the least expensive copies, like Amazon, and they're everywhere. And then the Easter book is He is Risen. Rocks Tell the Story of Easter. And that was my focus, of making sure that these super hard events that happened in the last week of the life of Christ are told in terms of love. And that why He did it. So it's not about guilt, it's about love and acceptance and possibility. And you'll see each of those pages is a rich demonstration of how you can put rocks together to tell a story.
Beautiful. Well, I've had such an amazing time. Are you working on any new projects?
Oh, thanks for asking. I mean, there's 2 projects I really want to do. And maybe if I put it out there, somebody else might, and that would be great too, because there's no two rock art scenes that look the same, right? So I'd love to see what anybody else does, but I would love to do the miracles of Christ because he did so many beautiful things, and to show the children that this is what's possible. He healed the sick. He raised the dead. And then he even told his disciples, he said, they were worried about him dying and leaving, and they didn't understand how it was all going to end. And he said, oh, don't worry about it. All these amazing things you've seen me do, greater things you will do. And to tell the kids that they have that possibility, that they can do great things in the name of our Savior. So I'd love to do that. And then completely separate from the faith-based thing, I am such an outdoor enthusiast. Wouldn't it be fun to have a whole book full of rock pictures that show backpacking, mountain climbing, hiking, kayaking, with John Muir quotes to inspire all of us to get outside and the beauty of it. So I have lots of ideas, but first I have to go back and earn a living so that I have enough money to go do that again. So I hope I get to, and I plan to.
Well, we can't wait. So check out both books are available now. He is Risen, Rocks Tell the Story of Easter. A Savior is Born, Rocks Tell the Story of Christmas. And both are created with love and inspiration by our guest, Patti Rokus. Patti, thank you so much for being part of our show.
Thank you. This has been a lot of fun.
Please be sure to join us for the next edition of the Reading with Your Kids podcast. We will be welcoming back author Kendara Blake. She is the author of the 3 Dark Crowns series, and she's back to tell us about 5 Dark Fates. It's the final chapter in the 3 Dark Crowns series. You don't want to miss it. Hey, if you are an author and you're looking to let the world know about your great book, the best place to do that is right here on the Reading with Your Kids podcast. Being a guest is fun, it's easy, and it gives you the chance to tell thousands of people about your wonderful children's literature. All you need to do is to go to our website, readingwithyourkids.com, click on the contact button, let us know about your great book. We will let you know the next easy steps. Hey, we want to thank Patti Rokus for being here today. We want to thank my amazing producer, Fatima Khan. I want to thank my beautiful wife for all the support that she gives me. And most of all, I want to thank you. Thank you so much for taking the time to leave a review, a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts or wherever you find your podcast. That helps other people learn about the show. I want to thank you for subscribing to the show on the iHeartRadio app or wherever you find your podcast. And most of all, I want to thank you for helping to make the world a better place. And you do that every time you read with your kids. I'll be looking for the next edition of the Reading with Your Kids podcast.